The fluorescent lights in the hospital parking garage flickered as I pushed my cleaning cart toward the service elevator. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in March, and I'd been doing this same route for 30 years. Level 3, Section B. That's where I found my son. Carlos was slumped against his car, his nurse's scrubs soaked with something dark. At first, I thought it was blood. My cart clattered to the concrete as I ran to him, my 62-year-old knees screaming in protest. "Carlos! Carlos, baby, can you hear me?" His eyes rolled back, unfocused. His lips were blue. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, checking his pulse like he'd taught me years ago when he first became a nurse. Weak. Too weak. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. It was Ryan Webb. He said, "People like us don't get to talk back." His father said, "You're just the cleaning lady. Your son should know his place." Then his eyes closed, and he went limp in my arms. The paramedics arrived in 4 minutes. They found the syringe in his car. They found the pills in his locker. By the time the sun rose, my son was in the ICU fighting for his life, and hospital security was calling him a drug addict. Dr. Ryan Webb, his supervisor, told the police Carlos had been acting erratic for weeks. I sat by Carlos's bedside for 3 days while he fought his way back. The doctors said it was a massive overdose of fentanyl and benzodiazepines, enough to kill him. They said it was a miracle he survived. On the 4th day, when Carlos could finally speak, he told me everything. It started 6 months ago. Carlos had been working the ICU night shift when he noticed something wrong with one of Dr. Ryan Webb's patients. An elderly woman, post-surgery, declining rapidly. Carlos checked her chart and realized the medication dosages were wrong, dangerously wrong. He reported it to Ryan, thinking it was a simple mistake, but Ryan's face had gone cold. "You're questioning my orders? My father is the chief of surgery. I've been practicing medicine since before you finished your associate's degree at community college." Carlos, being Carlos, didn't back down. He went to the nursing supervisor, filed a formal report. The patient was moved to another doctor and survived. 2 weeks later, Ryan's father, Dr. Harrison Webb, called Carlos into his office. Harrison came from old Charleston money. His family had donated the Webb wing of the hospital. His father and grandfather had both been chief of surgery before him. "Nurse Martinez," Harrison said, leaning back in his leather chair. "Your mother is Maria, correct? The night janitor?" Carlos nodded, confused. "I've known your mother for years. She's an excellent cleaner. Keeps her head down, does her work, doesn't cause problems. Perhaps she could teach you something about knowing your place." Harrison smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My son made a judgment call." "You disagreed. That's fine. But in the future, remember that nurses follow doctors' orders, particularly nurses from your background." Carlos left that office shaking with rage, but he kept his mouth shut. He thought it was over. He was wrong. Last month, another patient. Another medication error. This time, the patient died. Carlos found the chart. The dosages were wrong again. Ryan Webb's signature at the bottom. But when Carlos went to report it, the chart had vanished. The digital records had been altered. It showed the correct dosages. Ryan's signature was gone. Carlos tried to tell the nursing supervisor. She cut him off. "Dr. Webb's father has already spoken to me. He says you've been making baseless accusations. He's concerned about your judgment. Frankly, Carlos, I'm concerned too." That's when Carlos knew he was in trouble. But he didn't know how much. 3 nights ago, Ryan pulled Carlos aside after a shift. "I know what you're trying to do," Ryan said quietly. "You think you're going to destroy my career over one mistake? My family has been at this hospital for 3 generations. Your mother mops floors. You really think anyone will believe you over me?" Carlos told him the truth mattered more than family money. Ryan laughed. "Truth? In this hospital? My father sits on the board. His best friend is the hospital president. You want to know what truth is? Truth is what we say it is." The next night, Carlos found the pills in his locker. He was going to turn them in, thinking someone had planted them to discredit him. But Ryan was faster. Ryan had already told security that Carlos had been acting paranoid, erratic, that he suspected drug use. And tonight, when Carlos was walking to his car after his shift, someone grabbed him from behind. He felt a needle in his neck. The world went fuzzy. He remembers Ryan's voice, cold and clinical. "This is what happens when people like you forget their place." That's what Carlos told me when he could finally speak. And that's when I made my phone call. "Helen," I said when my sister answered, "remember what Mama taught us? About the documentation?" There was a long pause. Then Helen said, "Maria, are you sure? It's been so long. I've been here 30 years, Helen. 30 years of seeing everything while they looked right through me, and I never stopped. Mama started the system in 1982. I've kept it going. Every night. Every shift. How much do you have?" I thought about the storage unit. The boxes and boxes of notebooks, photographs, documents. 30 years of being invisible. 30 years of cleaning executive offices after hours, of being in the room when they thought no one was listening, of finding papers in trash cans that I carefully smoothed out and photocopied. "Enough," I said. "I have enough." My mother came to this country from Guatemala in 1979. She got a job as a day cleaner at County General Hospital. She worked hard, learned English, kept her head down. But in 1982, something happened that changed her. A young nurse, a girl from El Salvador, was raped by a doctor in the supply closet. My mother was cleaning nearby. She heard the girl crying, heard the doctor threatening her. "Who will believe you? I'm a doctor. You're nobody." My mother wanted to help. She went to hospital administration. They thanked her for her concern and sent her back to work. The doctor kept his job. The nurse was fired for unprofessional conduct. That's when my mother started her system. She bought a small camera. She started keeping a journal. Every day, she wrote down what she saw, what she heard. She took photographs of documents left on desks, memos in trash cans, schedules on bulletin boards. She copied patient records that showed discrepancies. She recorded conversations she overheard in empty hallways. For 15 years, she documented everything. She never used it. She just collected it, organized it, stored it away. Someday, she told me, this will matter. Someday, someone will need proof that we see everything, even when they think we're invisible. When my mother passed in 1997, she gave me her notebooks and her camera. "Keep going," she whispered on her deathbed. "You have power they don't know about. Invisible women see everything." So I kept going. For 30 more years, I documented every shift, every night. I photographed executive memos about covering up medical errors. I copied emails about financial fraud. I overheard conversations about insurance scams, about falsified records, about protecting doctors who should have lost their licenses years ago. I saw the Webb family's influence protect Ryan through 3 previous malpractice cases that were quietly settled. And I wrote it all down. Dated, detailed, cross-referenced. When they see a cleaning lady, they see furniture. They talk in front of me like I'm not there. They leave confidential documents on their desks when they go home, trusting that the janitor can't read, can't understand, won't remember. They were wrong. The day after I called Helen, I called someone else. Someone my mother had known back in the 1980s, someone who had helped that young Salvadoran nurse get a lawyer when everyone else looked away. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she was now a federal prosecutor specializing in healthcare fraud. "Maria," Patricia said when I reached her, "I'm so sorry about Carlos. Your mother would be devastated." "My mother," I said, "would tell me to fight, and I have something to fight with." I met Patricia in a coffee shop far from the hospital. I brought 3 boxes. Just a sample. 30 years of documentation is too much to carry. She went through the notebooks, the photographs, the copied documents. Her expression changed from curious to serious to horrified. "Maria," she finally said, "do you understand what you have here?" "Yes," I said. "I have proof." "You have more than proof. You have evidence of systematic Medicare fraud, falsified patient records, covered-up malpractice cases, witness intimidation. You have documented corruption going back 30 years. The Webb family, they've been running this hospital like their personal kingdom. Can you use it? Can you help my son?" Patricia closed the notebook she was reading. I need to get the FBI involved. This is bigger than one case. But yes, Maria, we can help Carlos. And we can make sure this never happens to anyone else again." 3 days later, the FBI arrived at the hospital at 6 a.m. with search warrants. They raided Harrison Webb's office, Ryan Webb's locker, the hospital administration offices. They seized computers, files, records. I was mopping the hallway outside Harrison's office when they carried out boxes of evidence. Harrison saw me standing there with my mop, and for the first time in 30 years, he really looked at me. His face went white. "You," he whispered. "It was you." I nodded. "I'm just the cleaning lady, Dr. Webb. I keep my head down. I do my work. I don't cause problems." His hands were shaking. "What did you do?" "I saw everything," I said quietly. "Every night for 30 years, I saw everything you thought you could hide. My mother taught me that invisible women have a special kind of power. You look right through us. That's your mistake." They arrested Ryan first. The evidence was overwhelming. The syringe they found in Carlos's car had Ryan's fingerprints. Security footage showed Ryan approaching Carlos in the parking garage. And in Ryan's locker, they found vials of fentanyl stolen from the pharmacy. But that was just the beginning. My 30 years of documentation showed a pattern. Ryan had made errors before, serious errors. Patients had died, and every time, Harrison had covered it up. Altered records, paid off families, used his position on the board to bury investigations. The Medicare fraud was even worse. For 15 years, Harrison had been billing for procedures that were never performed, ordering unnecessary tests, keeping patients hospitalized longer than needed, millions of dollars in fraudulent claims. And it wasn't just Harrison and Ryan. My documentation showed a network of doctors and administrators who'd been part of the system, all of them protected by money and family connections, all of them confident that no one would ever hold them accountable. They were wrong about that too. The trial started in September. Carlos had recovered fully by then, back at work at a different hospital. They'd tried to fire him, but once the FBI showed the planted evidence, the hospital had to reinstate him, with back pay, and a formal apology. I sat in the courtroom every day. Ryan was tried first, for attempted murder. The prosecution laid out the case. Carlos had threatened to expose medical malpractice. Ryan, with his father's encouragement, had decided to silence him. Plant drugs, stage an overdose, discredit him as an addict. The defense tried to paint Carlos as unstable, as someone with a grudge against successful doctors. They tried to suggest I had manipulated the evidence, that my documentation was fake. But they couldn't explain the fingerprints. They couldn't explain the security footage. They couldn't explain the 30 years of dated, cross-referenced notebooks that showed a pattern of corruption. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Ryan got 15 years. His medical license was permanently revoked. He appealed, of course, but he lost. Harrison's trial was more complex. Federal charges of healthcare fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice. The evidence was my 30 years of documentation, corroborated by the FBI's forensic investigation of hospital records. Harrison's lawyers were expensive. They tried everything. They questioned my credibility. They said I was an immigrant with an axe to grind. They suggested I was too uneducated to understand what I'd documented. The prosecutor, Patricia Chen, destroyed that argument in 5 minutes. "Mrs. Martinez," she said during my testimony, "how many languages do you speak?" 3. Spanish, English, and I learned some medical terminology. "And what's your education level?" "I finished high school in Guatemala. I took some college courses here, but I had to work to support my family." "In your 30 years at the hospital, how many doctors have you seen come and go?" "Hundreds." "How many of them knew you could read English?" I smiled. "None of them." "How many of them knew you understood medical terminology?" "None of them." "How many of them thought you were smart enough to document their crimes?" "None of them, ma'am." Patricia turned to the jury. "Mrs. Martinez has been invisible for 30 years. Not because she's uneducated or unintelligent, but because powerful men like Dr. Webb chose not to see her. They chose to believe that a cleaning lady couldn't possibly understand what she was seeing, hearing, documenting. That arrogance, ladies and gentlemen, is why we're here today. Harrison was convicted on 18 counts of fraud. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $4.2 million in restitution. His medical license was revoked. The hospital stripped his name from the Webb wing. 11 other doctors and administrators were charged based on my documentation. Most took plea deals. 3 went to trial. All were convicted. The hospital itself faced massive fines and was put under federal oversight. The entire board of directors resigned. They brought in new leadership, new policies, new accountability measures, and they offered me a position, not as a janitor, as a patient advocate and compliance monitor. They wanted me to keep doing what I'd been doing for 30 years, watching, listening, documenting. But this time, officially, I accepted. I still work nights, but now I have an office. A desk with my name on it. People actually see me when I walk down the hallway. Carlos asked me how I stayed so calm through everything, through finding him dying in that parking garage, through the investigation, through the trials, through watching powerful men try to destroy our credibility. I told him the same thing my mother told me when I was young, when I first started cleaning at the hospital and saw how they treated us. Patience, I said. Patience and truth. They have money and power and connections. We have something stronger. We have the truth, and we have time. Let them think we're invisible. Let them think we don't understand. Let them make their mistakes while we're watching. And when the time comes, when someone we love is in danger, we use what we've seen. But how did you know? Carlos asked. How did you know it would work? I thought about my mother, about that young Salvadoran nurse in 1982, about all the people who'd been hurt by the system. About 30 years of watching injustice while I mopped floors and emptied trash cans. I didn't know it would work, I said honestly, but I knew I had to try, because you're my son, and because the truth matters more than their power. Carlos hugged me. You saved my life, Mom. No, I said. The truth saved your life. I just wrote it down. It's been 2 years now. Carlos is thriving at his new hospital. He's being considered for a management position. He met a wonderful woman, a physical therapist. They're talking about marriage. I still keep my notebooks, still document what I see. But now, when I see something wrong, I don't have to wait 30 years to use it. I report directly to the compliance committee, and they listen. Last week, a young doctor tried to bury a medication error. I saw it. I documented it. I reported it. The doctor was suspended pending investigation. The patient was monitored and recovered. The doctor complained to administration. Said I was overstepping, that I was just a former janitor who didn't understand medicine. The hospital president called us both into her office. She looked at the doctor and said, Mrs. Martinez has 30 years of experience watching doctors at this hospital. She documented corruption that put 11 people in prison and cost this hospital millions in fines. When she tells us something is wrong, we listen. If you have a problem with that, perhaps this isn't the right hospital for you. The doctor apologized. To me, directly, times change, power shifts, truth wins, eventually. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry about all those years. 30 years of being invisible, being disrespected, being treated like I didn't matter. I'm not angry. I'm grateful. Because being invisible gave me power. It gave me the ability to see truth that powerful people tried to hide. It gave me evidence that saved my son's life and brought justice to hundreds of patients who'd been harmed. My mother was right. Invisible women see everything. And when the time comes, when someone we love needs us, we have what we need to fight back. The truth is the most powerful weapon in the world. You just have to be patient enough to collect it and brave enough to use it when it matters most. I still walk through that hospital parking garage sometimes. Level 3, Section B. The place where I found Carlos dying. Where this whole thing started. I think about that night. About how close we came to losing everything. About how Ryan Webb thought he could get away with murder because his family had money and power and connections. He was wrong. They were all wrong. Because they never counted on a cleaning lady with a notebook and a camera and 30 years of patience. They never counted on the truth.